We are officially under the 30-day mark. Stay strong, football fans. The NFL is on its way. And you're going to want to stay tuned for our NFC North Division Preview and Best Bets episode. Welcome, football fans, to another edition of the Degen Docs. What is up, folks? We are talking football. Season is so close. We can almost taste it. Love that my schedule is just all football prep all the time because we are now officially under 30 days from NFL kickoff. What is up, folks? I am the Degen Doc, and more importantly, I'm joined by my brother in degeneracy, Mr. Derek Bennett, a.k.a. Professor Locks. How we doing tonight, brother?
Oh, my man. We saw the Hall of Fame game Thursday. We just had a bunch of new Hall of Fame inductees over the weekend. My Steelers have their first preseason game on Thursday. Like you said, we're 30 days basically out from real football, week one, and we're getting juiced.
We are jacked up, ready to go. Look, folks, a little bit of show structure up top like we like to do. This is another division preview. We have done the entire AFC. We've done the AFC South. We did the West, then the East, and then the North. And now we're moving on to the NFC. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. This is how this is going to go. We're going to go team by team and do our team previews and breakdown. So what we're going to do, we'll talk roster, big losses, big additions. Then we'll talk, takeaways, injuries, injury analysis there. Benefit of having two healthcare professionals on the podcast here.
Yep. Then we'll go about fantasy. We'll get some stats.
There we
go. Do all the things, and then we'll have 2 or 3 best bets per man here. So
bets we are already on. We put our hard-earned money on and would advise you to do the same. Oh, yeah. But Derek did mention a little bit of banter up top. We had the Hall of Fame inductions, a bunch of very reputable names in the sport, Drew Brees and such. But one that you probably didn't expect to bring the fire, Mr. Adam Vinatieri, hilarious speech. The one of the bigger ones is, I think you remember better. He went at Pat McAfee here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Basically, evidently Pat McAfee is the only guy that likes to hold Vinny's balls more than his wife. Off season, evidently his wife does hold for him, but yeah, no, between that and going after Peyton Manning's giant ass head, saying, hey, thanks for being my teleprompter for the day.
My personal favorite, he went after, rival coach Bill Belichick.
Well, it was his former head coach as well.
True. That's true. Yeah, that's fair. But I always think of him as a Colt. Those Colts Patriots. But he did today. Unfortunately, Bill couldn't be here because he was judging one of his girlfriend's cheerleading competitions. So he brought the smoke.
Quite the jab after Bill didn't get in. This first round, which is
we
absolutely
did
insane.
Talk about last year, which is insane. I don't know how you don't let in arguably the greatest coach of all time. Right. And I'm saying this as a Giants fan. He's a Steelers fan. We don't particularly like Bill Belichick, but you have to respect what he did. So Hall of Fame, I was already pissed at him for not letting in Eli. But the Bill Belichick thing, some question marks there.
Yeah, very interesting.
So major injuries we talked about. Hey, like if it's big enough, we'll talk about it up top before. We're going to get to this division preview here probably in a week or so. But some major injury news out of the NFC East. Washington Commanders left tackle Laremy Tunsil, one of the better left tackles in the game, out for likely the season, if not most of the season, with a triceps tendon tear. Gonna require surgery. Chance he could be back late season or a playoff push. But I have a hard time thinking playoffs are in the future if your blindside protector of Jaden Daniels is down. Right. I mean, Jaden Daniels, awesome rookie year. Nothing could stop him except the injury bug last year. And now your star left tackle goes down. I mean, where are you at with this injury?
Yeah, I think it's massive. Like you said, I mean, you're not only bringing a guy back off of injuries last year where we saw a major tick down in his productivity, but you're also changing a lot offensively after Cliff Kingsbury leaves from
Yep, good
Washington. You
point.
bring in a new OC.
Yeah, great point.
You want to have camaraderie in that offensive line. You want to have a solid unit that's been around for some time. It's probably the biggest unit, if you will, as far as year to year
Yeah.
stability. And when you take away a left tackle, he's like an 8 or 10 time Pro Bowler. He's probably a borderline top 5 offensive tackle still, even 9, 10 years into the league. He's going to be a major hit to that offense for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a downgrade really everywhere for the Washington offense.
Agreed.
Hard to not. Looks like Brandon Coleman will step in. They moved him to guard. They're moving him back out to left tackle. He
Right.
played there in the 2024 season. Did okay, but this is a clear step down.
Yeah.
The NFC North, man, kind of want to just jump right into it because we've got a ton to talk about. We were talking a little bit pre-production, a little offline. This is an interesting division. I mean, it's one of those divisions where you can make a case for all 4 teams. You can probably
100%.
make a case against as well. The 3 teams finished with 9 wins. You had 9-8, 9-8, 9-7-1, and then the Bears that we gave out last year to win the division at a juicy price. They came in at 11-6.
Right.
So without further ado, man, I think we just jump right in.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and start with the team that not many people thought would be in last place, technically, coming in from last season with a 9-8 record. That is your Detroit Lions team that was in 2024 coming off a 15-2 number 1 seed. They had the NFC Championship or NFC Divisional at home and lost to rookie Jaden Daniels. And things kind of spiraled a little bit last year. Came in with a bunch of hype. Did not meet that hype. And they're right back on the hype train. This is another year where there is a ton of expectations for this Detroit Lions team. Let's talk losses and additions, as we always do. Let's start breaking down this roster. So for the losses, Knuckles to the Sonic in the backfield, as in David Montgomery, is now gone. He's in Houston. Wide receiver Khalif Raymond is also gone. He's in Indianapolis, I believe. Anthony Fursker tight end is gone. Taylor Decker is currently a free agent. Dan Skipper retired. Graham Glasgow retired. Marcus Davenport is a free agent. Al-Quadin Muhammad, probably should have said Muhammad, second in sacks on the team last year. He's in Tampa Bay. DJ Reader, a big body, is now with my Giants. Alex Anzalone with Tampa Bay, the second leading tackle on the team. Terrion Arnold, the guy they expected to be their starting cornerback, decided to get in some legal trouble, and they ultimately cut him. Although I did hear he is going on visits, so I don't know if he's going to play this season, but it kind of sucks that the Lions kind of were forced to cut him, and then he may still play for another team. I'm sure he's going to get some type of suspension, but with the legal process, I mean, you never know when that stuff's going to come. Right. And then Meek Robertson is gone. Additions, not a ton. I mean, with the roster, they have great skill positions. You don't expect them to add a ton. Isaiah Pacheco coming over from Kansas City, who did pick up an MCL sprain this week. He's expected to be back for week 1, but he's going to be a bit limited. But it's the Jahmyr Gibbs show, let's be honest. Greg Dortch coming in, Tyler Conklin. Blake Miller, their first-round pick out of Clemson. He's slotted, to be a starter opposite side Penei Sewell. Cade Mays is supposed to be your starting center, but we got some injury news on him today. Stu Scruggs coming over from Houston. Then the rookie Derek Moore from Michigan. DJ Wanham coming over from Carolina. Roger McCreary, Chuck Clark, and Christian Izien there. So some change, it seems like more lost than came in, but about even. Where are you at with this 2026 Detroit Lions roster?
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, and you mentioned it, their skill positions are basically locked in. I mean, when you have guys like Jameson Williams and the Sun God Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta coming back off of back surgery, assuming that he comes back and is healthy, you're not going to find a much better skill position unit than the Detroit Lions, and you
No,
still
I
have
don't
Jared
think so.
Goff there. But outside of that, I do have some major questions. I mean, we talked about this quite a bit last year, but their offensive line went from one of the best in the league to arguably one of the worst in the league
Oh yeah.
really, really quickly.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned, I mean, you bring in Cade Mays as a free agent. He has some injury issues going on, as you mentioned. You did bring in Seth McLaughlin, who is a former Remington Award winner, or I believe award winner.
Or
It
at
was
least a finalist.
borderline. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
definitely a finalist from Ohio State there. He's now slotted to be the starting center, but he's also coming off of injury, so it's one of those situations where offensive line, you have a couple youngsters that could step in there and perform really, really well, but you have youngsters that you're still trying to gel with Penei Sewell and the rest of those guys. Defensively, Aiden Hutchinson is hopefully going to be healthy this year because when he's healthy and making plays, the Detroit Lions can be a fun team to watch. Outside of
Right.
him, though, they're beat up in the back end. They have a lot
Yeah.
of moving pieces in the back end. Their defense was okay through part of the season, and
Yeah.
then just like the year before, they had so many injuries that they started to fall off, and then their defense was really pretty bad towards the end of the season there. So, yeah, I mean, I can see a pathway where the Detroit Lions return to a 12-13 win team. I can also see a pathway where they completely fall off the edge of the cliff and are like a 4 or 5 win team if we, see a couple injuries of some of those skill guys that we expect to be really solid.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. When you look at the Detroit Lions, the stars are the brightest, right?
Yes.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams,
Yep.
Jahmyr Gibbs, Aiden Hutchinson, Brian Branch.
Yep.
But the other guys, the glue, especially in the trenches,
The depth.
very concerning. And the secondary. I mean, we're going to talk about injuries because they're just a huge part of this team going into the year. But there's
As
potentially
they have been the last probably
right.
year and a half.
I mean, they had 3 out of their 4 or 5 guys in the secondary they expected to start will not be there for at least week 1, if not the majority of the season.
Right.
So this is big there. Let's just get right into it, actually, because we were talking about it. No need to beat around the bush. So going over the injuries, safety Brian Branch. I love Brian Branch. I think he's one of the best players. I loved him at Bama. He's just so dynamic. He can do so much on the back end. For somebody who appreciates defense, he's just an awesome, awesome player. He tore his Achilles, unfortunately, December 4th of 2025. That's about 9.5 months from injury date to week 1. It typically takes about 10 to 12 months to really kind of get going with off the Achilles and be a productive player. He started on the PUP, still on the PUP. Does not seem like they're going to rush him back. If we're less than 5 weeks from the season, I would expect him to have kind of already been brought up for ramp up if they thought week 1 was a possibility.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, you gave out that 10 to 12 month timeline, and I completely agree with that. We also have to remember, this is not a quarterback. This is not a guy that, knows where he's going. A lot of the higher known Achilles injuries that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years have been quarterbacks, running backs, and the likes of guys that are on offense that know what is going to happen. As a defensive back, you have to move on the fly the entire time, which is definitely going to slow that timeline down even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially those quarterbacks. You typically see that ACLs, Achilles, they come back close to that 9.5 month mark because they don't have to be as mobile, right? At least if everything goes to plan. So, yeah, he's expected to probably miss the early part of the season. And for his recovery long term, probably the best case. Kirby Joseph is another one, man, that just kind of
interesting situation.
We don't get a lot. We just kind of this weird, eerie, chronic knee issues, which Newsflash, if it's chronic, that means it's not going away anytime soon.
Yep.
Last year, or he kind of talked about it in training camp this, like July 30th, I think it was, about the injury last year. He's kind of like woke up, his knee was in pain, wasn't running well, got an MRI, and he said, only God can help me at this point, was the quote.
It's almost sounding like a Todd Gurley situation where all of a sudden arthritis, even at an earlier age, can still bite you in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not going away unless
you have
not
the youngest player at this point. I mean, this is like, there's a chance he doesn't play the entire season. He could be done for his career.
Right.
I mean, he's on the pup. No set return date. No real updates. Like, it is very ominous, and like the less information you hear, typically the worse. So I wouldn't expect Branch or Joseph in the early part of the season, let alone week one.
At least first third.
Yeah.
Probably the first half.
We talked about Terrion Arnold. He's supposed to be, quarterback 1 or 2, or a starter for them. Had to be cut from the team due to the legal trouble. Will probably get suspended anyway, but they cut him. And whether he plays for, I saw he visited with the Seahawks, the Saints, the Texans, he could be on another team next year. Seems like he's done in Detroit. So that's 3 guys you thought were going to be starting for you going into the season that will not be there. Positive news, Sam Laporta coming off of back surgery in November of last season. Backs, necks, you never kind of know, right? It's one of those things we kind of tell patients, like, try to avoid them at all costs, because there's people that go in and they come out great, and there's people that never the same again. Right. So thankfully, it looks like Laporta is kind of on the up and up. He's been at training camp, looks good to go. No real setbacks that we can see. Now, there is always some concern with backs. There is a high re-injury rate with that type of stuff. But as of now, looks good to go. But this most recent news we got kind of this morning, Cade Mays, center, who was supposed to be a veteran part of that offensive line, wrist fracture, is going to be out 2 to 3 months. We're only 5 weeks away from the season, so he will miss at least the first 3-4 weeks. This is really bad, in my opinion. I kind of put something out there. When I was looking at this Lions team, the biggest difference to me from the 2024 Lions that went 15-2 to last year's Lions that went 9-8 was the offensive line.
Yeah.
The secondary was kind of a concern both years, and the injuries, like, it kind of just has been their thing. So I think, like, that is still a concern, but what changed for me was the offensive line. When you look at that 2024 team, you had Taylor Decker, Graham Glasnow, Frank Ragnow, Kevin Zeitler, Penei Sewell.
Yep.
4 guys that are veteran-proven commodities, and then you had the young guy in Sewell, who is an absolute freak of nature, one of the best prospects we've seen in a long time. You look at going into this season now, you got Penei Sewell at left tackle to anchor you down. Then you got Christian Mahogany, a young guy who is a higher draft pick, but he was coming off an injury, hasn't really looked right from Boston College. Seth McLaughlin, like you just talked about with Cade Mays, another young guy, kind of improved. Tate Retledge, second-year player, and then Blake Miller, a rookie. And it was your first-round pick, but this is, again, an inexperienced group with not a lot of chemistry.
And especially when you have Jared Goff behind him, who is not anywhere close to being mobile, it could be a recipe for disaster. It could also be really good if some of these young guns
if they
hit the ground running.
Yeah, they got to hit, though. It's a big gamble right now.
It is.
And Mays will be back. It sounds like, between week 4 and week 8 or something like that is the projection. So he should be back, but and the fractures, they just need time to heal typically. Like, you can't really rush it, because then you're going to re-risk breaking it. Right. But once they're healed, they're good. Like, I'm not really worried about him when he comes back. But if it's week 6 and you're already, 2-4, it's a tough start. So, all right, let's move on to fantasy. Really, the one guy I want to talk about here, the guy who's kind of going 1-1, Jahmyr Gibbs. Is he worth the first-round pick to you? I'll just read off his stats for last year. He had 1,223 rush yards, 13 touchdowns, 616 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns, and that was with splitting time with David Montgomery.
Yep.
Where are you at with Jahmyr Gibbs this year in fantasy?
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, based on his past production, it's hard to pass on a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I don't know if this is going to be a full workload. You still brought in Isaiah Pacheco, who's a pretty serviceable back in his own nature, but I think that there are other options where I feel are more secure. We've already talked about the questions that we have along their offensive line.
Right.
Jahmyr Gibbs did perfectly fine behind a so-so offensive line last year, but at the same
Yeah.
time, you still have guys like Bijan Robinson. You still have guys out there that I think are a little bit more of a can't miss kind of a situation. I think he's a top
So are
three,
you
four pick.
are you
But
taking Bijan over Jahmyr Gibbs if you have the first pick?
I am.
Is you taking anybody else?
Um,
I guess I mean off my the top of my head, Chase would be the only other guy I
I
think.
would, yeah, I would say depending on how the league is set up, potentially wide receivers,
Right.
either Chase or Puka, but yeah, I think Bijan would probably still be my 1-1.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing mostly in fantasy streets is Gibbs is kind of getting the slight edge, but it's either Gibbs or Bijan. My
Yeah,
only thing would be I think I probably would. This is tough. Yeah, I think you can. I don't think you can really go wrong between Gibbs and Bijan because I think they both have similar concerns.
yeah,
Now, the Atlanta Falcons' offensive line is actually pretty good,
right.
but their quarterback situation is much worse, in my opinion.
Fair.
So, what is that offense going to look like? Now, both of them, their receiving upside just kind of like makes them. I feel like you can't really drop them out of that top 2 or 3
Yeah,
because they're going to catch so many balls and be effective in the
yeah,
receiving game that it's like
right.
you can't really get too cute away from these guys.
Agreed.
But I both
Yeah,
Bijan and Jameer
he's
Gibbs
definitely a
offenses.
top three guy. I
Yeah,
think I'm taking Bijan over Jameer.
I think that's fair. I think that's completely fair. All right, going into the 2025 stats from last year, and then we're going to go over to the betting space. They were fifth in yardage on offense. They were fifth in points scored with just over 28 points a game. Third in pass offense, just over 250 yards per game. 14th in rush offense, so middle of the road there. 18th in yardage on defense, which given that talent, I think Kelvin Shepard did about as good of a job as he could there. Giving up just over 330 yards, but 22nd in points allowed, just over 24 points per game. 18th in pass defense to over 215 yards a game, and 14th in rush defense, just under 115 yards a game, +4 in the turnover differential. They turned those stats into a 9-8 season. Technically, I think last in the division, but they had the same record as the Vikings, and the Packers just had 9-7-1. Win total going over this year: 10.5 wins, over -115, under -105. To make the playoffs, they're -220. To miss, +180. To win the NFC North, +170. To win the NFC, +930. To win the Super Bowl, 19-1. So not quite as much hype as last season, but still a good amount of hype to the clear favorites to win this division.
Yeah.
Where you at with these 2026 Detroit Lions?
Yeah, I mean, with all of the injuries that are already happening, we know that for whatever reason, the injury bug just seems to hit Detroit a lot over the last couple years, and I don't know if that's necessarily going to change, but I just have major questions on a couple pretty big units, and that's the offensive line and the secondary.
Yep.
You need some, camaraderie. I mean, you got to have guys that have played with each other for a while for
both
those
units.
for both of those units to work.
Yep.
Neither of those things are happening in Detroit. So I am going to take their under at 10.5 at +100 over bet 365.
Nice.
I just don't necessarily, and like I said, to start, I see a pathway for them to return to a 12-win team. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that there's going to be issues in both of those units. Their defense just hasn't necessarily gelled over the last couple years. And yeah, I think overall this is going to be a 7, 8, 9, 10, or 7, 8, 9 win team.
Yeah. Look, I'm right there with you. I will also take Detroit Lions under 10.5 wins. You can get, I saw +105 over on FanDuel I grabbed last night. These things do fluctuate, obviously, so shop around. Now, like you said, questionable offensive line. Outside of Penei Sewell, I have question marks on every other player on that offensive line. Most of it because they're young. There's inexperience. They could absolutely outperform. But especially with the Cade Mays injury. I mean, that's the quarterback of your offensive line right there, and I did like that addition of Cade Mays a lot, actually. That makes this real tough. The secondary, I think, is now among the worst in the league. Now, you throw Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph in there healthy, different story. Terrion Arnold, different story. Going into the season was going to be okay. Yeah. Now it's, DJ Reed, Avonte Maddox, Chuck Clark, Keith Abney, and Roger McCreary. A lot of journeymen, a lot of young guys, not a lot of confidence within that group in a pass-happy NFL. And then we talked about it a little bit, but Jared Goff, he can turn into quite the pumpkin under pressure. We saw it last year. If the play-action game isn't working, if the line's not holding up, he is very immobile.
He's a sitting duck.
He's a sitting duck, and he can throw some ducks up there. I think that this is going to be the classic team where you can have all the shiny skill position toys you want, but if you cannot block it, you cannot execute it. And if you can't stop the pass, what are you doing in today's NFL? Aiden Hutchinson is a beast. Brian Branch, when healthy, is a monster. I think Jack Campbell, Malcolm Rodriguez are a decent linebacker core, but that secondary, man, I have questions. And really D-line as well, outside of Hutchinson. Ali McNeil, when he stays healthy, can do some things, but DJ Wanham or Wizarke, that's a little bit meh for me. So under 10.5, missed playoffs at plus 180 over at DK.
Okay.
I'm also going to take you to under 8.5 wins at plus 300 on FanDuel. If we look at their schedule here, they start against New Orleans. I think that's a super dangerous game against New Orleans. But we haven't talked about them.
Very interesting matchup.
That's going to be very, very interesting. You got a secondary that's going to be down 3 starters going against Chris Olave and Jordan Tyson. Yeah. Have fun. At Buffalo. Then you got, New York, at Carolina, at Arizona. I mean, that's early on in the season where you're not going to have your center, and I don't think your 2 starting safeties. So I could kind of see them slipping up there, and then they come off the bye week, and even when they get healthy, they've got a pretty tough schedule. Their division, we'll kind of talk about the rest of the teams, but I think it's a solid division, and they see some pretty decent teams out of that conference or schedule.
For a last place schedule, it's not an easy one for sure.
No, and I mean part of it is your NFC North is, I mean they're competent teams. You have 4 competent teams, which you do not get in most.
As a whole, this is like a slight. The NFC North as a whole this year is like a slightly upgraded NFC South of a couple years ago, where like there weren't any teams that were really good. But I think just like last year, all of these teams will end up with 7 to 10 wins kind of situation, or 7 to 9 wins.
There's not a lot of difference separating these guys. Play each other close to. They know each other very well. The fans, will get after it. So yeah, I think that's a funny comparison. It's like a better version of the NFC South.
Right.
I think that is very fair. Do you got any other plays for the Detroit Lions?
I do have one, and it's actually an over on one of the skill guys. I think that J-Mo's going to have another year. Give me his over at 899.5 at minus 110. I mean, Amon-Ra's number is just so freaking high that if he goes down for any given amount of time, it's going to be hard for him to do that. Same thing with Jahmyr Gibbs. Those are 2 top 4, top 5 guys in their respective positions. So their numbers are just outrageous. J-Mo's hit this number each of the last 2 years. I mean, both years he's had around 100 targets. So yeah, give me his basically over 900 receiving yards at minus 110.
Yeah, look, I mean, I talked about it. I'm not high on this team. I'll continue to talk about it. But from a fantasy perspective, I do think like the skill guys are going to get theirs. I do think Amon-Ra, Jameson, Gibbs, Laporta. I do think
this is one of those teams that kind of like the Bengals. Like it's going to be a shootout every single.
If they want to win, they're going to have to probably put up 30 points.
Right.
Legitimately. Now, I don't know if they can do that behind this offensive line.
Right.
But from a fantasy perspective, I do think they are very appealing. So from the player props point of view, I definitely don't hate that. All right, if that's yours, I'm going to continue this little bit of a Detroit hate train.
Oh,
this is probably one of the biggest teams that I am off market from the rest, from Vegas and everybody. I really think this could go bad. Already given out the under 10.5, already given out missed playoffs, already given up under 8.5 at 3-1. I think a 4th place finish is very
Just did it
doable.
last year. Yeah.
They just came off a fourth place finish, and it's at 5-1. You can get them at 5-1 to finish fourth in the division over on
Well, I got one.
FanDuel. I just think that is a super missed price. I don't understand where all the love is. I mean, I do get it because they have the sexy pieces, right?
Yep.
You know, you've got the Gibbs, you've got the Amon-Ra, they've got Dan Campbell and the rah. But look at when you peel back the onion a bit, it gets pretty ugly.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go
Well,
fourth.
and that's the other thing you mentioned MCDC there. I mean, he is a player's coach. He is a raw guy. But if this team starts 2-4, 2-5, like that raw can only get you so far if you're just losing week after week after week.
Especially with the expectations, especially coming off disappointing season last season. So I am playing a case, obviously, where the wheels fall off a bit. And if the wheels really fall off, as in maybe Gibbs goes down, maybe Amon-Ra goes out, maybe we realize that Jared Goff is the guy that was traded away for the Rams to win a Super Bowl behind a very poor offensive line. Just a sprinkle, just a thought. I have to put it out there because I put a little sprinkle of my own money on it, so I got to say it.
Flip a quarter on it.
Worst record in the NFL.
Ooh.
250-1.
Okay.
I mean, this is the Detroit Lions. This is the franchise that did go 0-16. Now, obviously, it's been a couple years removed, but looking at this roster, I think they're much closer to a bottom half team in the NFL than a top half. So I'm going to play a little bit of the ceiling case. Really, the under missed playoffs, under 8.5. Really like the fourth place finish. This is a little bit of a dart throw. It's a 250-1, but I think it's worth it because I am very, very displeased with what I'm seeing right now from the Detroit Lions. All right, folks. 2026 Detroit Lions, earmuffs, Lions fans. Unfortunately, both Derek and I are going to be fading this team. We're both on the under 10.5. That is where Derek's hate train stops. I'm going to keep it going. Missed the playoffs plus 180. Under 8.5, 3-1. Fourth place finish, 5-1. Worst record in the NFL, 250-1. Derek is taking Jameson Williams over on his receiving prop, so you can have a little bit of solace there. But the offensive line problems, the secondary problems, Jared Goff's immobility, not a recipe I want to be getting behind for this 2026 NFL season. The Green Bay Packers, those cheeseheads up in Wisconsin. Wisconsin, good cheese, good beer, maybe a little bit too good of beer for some called Tony Romo, but different tiers of operating while intoxicated. Very interesting. Wisconsin getting a little bit of some limelight this offseason. But the Packers, 9-7-1. Sneaking in to the playoffs there because of that tie, playing the Bears back-to-back, and unfortunately getting that heartbreak that we saw from Mr. Caleb Williams. Now, going into the season, things are looking a little different. A team that did not bring much in at all, but got rid of some things. Again, coming off a 9-7-1 record in 2025, looking at the roster for this season, they no longer have their backup quarterback in Malik Willis, who looked the best he has in his career, the games he played. No longer have their RB2 in Emmanuel Wilson. No longer have their leading wide receiver from last season in Romeo Doubs. Dontavian Wicks is now shipped off to Philly. Rasheed Walker is in Carolina. Elton Jenkins is in Cleveland. Rashawn Gary, the second in sacks on the team. He is with the Cowgirls there. Kingsley Egbare is gone. Quay Walker, their leading tackler, is also gone. Nate Hobbs, Trayvon Diggs, and Brandon McManus all off the team. So good amount of guys that gave them some real production and snaps last season. Kind of going with the youth movement this season. They did have a lot of young guys that were showing a lot of promise. Brought in Tyrod Taylor to be a formidable backup. Sky Moore, I don't know if that's notable or not, but sure. Devon Hargrave coming over from Minnesota. Chris McClellan, their second pick in the draft out of Mizzou. Zaire Franklin, kind of the big offseason addition there, coming over from Indianapolis. Benjamin St. Juste, and their first draft pick they had, I believe it was in the second round, though, Brandon Cisse, cornerback out of South Carolina. All right, man, where are you at with this 2026 Green Bay Packers roster?
Oh, man. I mean, as a whole, their defense really hasn't changed a ton as far as notable guys, in my opinion, besides Rashawn Gary and Quay Walker. I think those pieces are definitely going to be missed. Offensively, they don't have as many wide receiver twos as last year.
Yeah.
I mean, you lose Romeo Dobbs and Wicks there. You bring in another guy, Sky Moore, that just seems to fill in for one of those guys. It'll be interesting, though. I do think their offensive line is still a pretty serviceable unit. Hopefully we can get Josh Jacobs good and healthy for this year. I was very disappointed I couldn't find any Josh Jacobs numbers in any book.
Well, the legal trouble.
Well, that's true.
If we remember, there was a domestic violence case.
That's true.
Now, I don't think any charges were pressed or something like that. It was a weird situation where it's like he's getting arrested, and then it was like, wait, there's no charges, and it was a girlfriend situation. And
I did forget about that. That's
domestic violence will never be condoned or will never be approved on this show. But
well, I'm glad I couldn't find it because I don't like betting on guys that have those issues, anyways. But no, I mean, overall, the biggest concern to me is when will we see Micah Parsons?
Yes.
Like, is it going to be week 2, 4, 6?
Well,
like when?
It's not going to be before week 6, as of what he said today. So you're going to be missing him for at least 5 weeks, best case scenario.
Okay, perfect. So we'll wait till we talk about my best bets. But I mean, the big thing to me is without Micah Parsons last year, they finished 0-5. 0-4 in the regular season, lost their playoff game. They turned into a pumpkin in their own right as soon as he went down. So I think there was a big difference between when he was out there and how much pressure the defense could put on opposing quarterbacks compared to when he was not there. Now, you were also missing Tucker Kraft and a couple guys on the offensive line. But, it's almost like they're running it back, even with the changes that they do have.
Yeah, man, this Packers team is a really tough read for me.
Yeah.
There's aspects that I really like. I think LaFleur is a really good coach. I think he gets a lot out of his roster. I think they're consistent. I think they have talent at kind of all levels. But they also have legit major concerns, right? When this offense was operating at its best, Tucker Kraft was the focal point of this offense. He's a great player. He's got great potential. Coming off that ACL tear, we'll talk about him in a second. Sure. I think he's got a real shot to be on the field week 1. I think it's going to take some time for him to look like the Tucker Kraft that we're used to.
Right.
And the same thing with Mike Parsons. And that's fine, but those are two players that if this team wants to reach their potential, they need to be 100% day one. Yeah. And that's not happening. So that's where this is a tough read for me, and we'll continue to talk about this team. But
with that, I guess to your point there, I mean, Tucker Kraft, I expect his ceiling for this season to drop off because as we've talked about many times, with ACL tears, Achilles tears, like it takes a year, almost 2 years for those guys to really get back to where they were pre-injury in most cases.
Typically 2 years,
Micah Parsons, I think, is an interesting case, or will be an interesting case this year because, again, it's the name. If he's out there, you're going to have to slide guys over towards his side for protection, whether he's getting there or not. And I think just him being on the field does open up so much for other guys on the front seven there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see when he comes back for 1, and 2, what he looks like along with Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, I also have some concerns on the O-line. Got rid of Elton Jenkins and Rasheed Walker. I thought were pretty decent players for them.
Yep.
Zach Toms is still on the team, but his name is now Zach Bako Bawule. So we changed his name. So I know as I was looking through the depth charts, I was like, what the hell is going on there?
Where'd he go?
So he's still there. He's still a good player. But Jordan Morgan, young player. Sean Ryan, Jacob Monk. I've got some concerns there. And Jordan Love, I still don't know exactly if he's a good quarterback or not.
Yeah.
So this is probably the hardest read for me.
He's like the longest, like maybe top 15 guy, but maybe like bottom.
Sometimes he looks really good, and sometimes he looks awful, and decision making is just not there. And some of these back foot throws are they're not good.
Yeah.
But he's a frustrating kind of quarterback to try to get a read on. There's definitely talent there. He's got potential, but consistency is a little bit lacking.
Right. Yes.
Let's talk injuries, because I think this, again, is a major part of this team. We talked about Micah Parsons, ACL meniscus tear, tore it December 14th. Typically about 10.5 to 12 months you want. He's only got 9 months until week 1. He has said the Packers will not play their guys before or at 9 months because, very smart. Research very, very strongly indicates that you're 10 times more likely, up to 10 times more likely for a re-injury or significant injury if you come back before 9 months. Yep. He said week 6 against the Cowboys is the best optimistic case. So everything goes right from here until then. The earliest you're seeing Micah Parsons is week 6. Obviously, week 6 could turn into week 8, whatever it may be. But even so, he's going to be missing at least the first 5 weeks. Tucker Kraft, ACL tear, no meniscus damage reported. Early November 2nd was the injury. This one, he's getting 10.5 months of recovery. That is kind of in that range we like to see. He got activated off the pup, on July 31st. He's been running routes, actually looking pretty good. So I think for him, there's a decent chance he's out there week 1. Now, again, as Derek talked about, temper expectations. Can take up to 2 years post-injury for normal movement patterns to return. Tight ends, they typically, because they're more bigger bodies and they're not kind of as relying on those cuts and that kind of speed and change of pace.
Route running skills are tempered a little bit.
Right. Really, they can just kind of box guys out and get to where they need to get to. So, but those are the 2 big ones. You've also got Luke Musgrave, backup tight end, who was actually drafted ahead of Tucker Kraft.
Right.
He recently popped up with a neck injury a couple weeks ago, and we've heard nothing, which is usually bad news. We know neck injuries in footballs do not mix. So concern there for a guy who has had plenty of injuries throughout his career.
Yep.
Javon Hargraves was on the PUP, but he was activated yesterday, so just this week. He should be good to go. So there is good news there, but again, Micah Parsons, Tucker Kraft, 2 of your biggest players. I think the 2 biggest players on this team coming in with injury concerns this year. Fantasy takeaways. I want to talk to wide receivers because even though they traded away 2 of their top 5, they've still got 3 guys that are pretty interchangeable.
Yeah.
So I'm curious who you would rather have and why. Christian Watson going around wide receiver 28 to wide receiver 30. Jaden Reed going around wide receiver 47 to 50. And Matthew Golden, the second-year player, going around wide receiver 48-ish. So Reed and Golden going around the same kind of place. Christian Watson going a couple rounds ahead of them. Who would you rather have and why?
These are all guys that could be borderline wide receiver 2s, maybe. I think it's one of those situations where, depending on what my team looks like going into where Christian Watson sits, he is a guy that I might be looking at because he does have a higher ceiling than those other guys. He does things that the other 2 can't do.
Yep.
And as a whole, even if it's a couple of rounds ahead of Reed or Golden, like I said, I think the ceiling is just high enough that he might be worth a flyer. And outside of injury history, he's a stud.
Yep.
The problem is, it seems like every year he misses 6 weeks.
Exactly. It is Watson for me as well because of what you talked about, the ceiling. However, number 1 predictor of injury is previous injury. Yep. So it is hard to have faith, right? He is definitely more of a high-risk, high-reward play. and you're not playing too much of a premium at wide receiver 20 to
Well,
wide receiver 30.
really, only thing they needed to do was strengthen his one hamstring because I think last year we were talking about they found miraculously that he had like a 20 or 30% deficit in his
Yeah,
one hamstring. It's like,
that's just poor
where have we
assessment.
not been testing?
Yeah, I mean, he's what, he was in his third year, fourth year in the league.
Yeah,
That just tells me there was piss poor assessment, offseason assessment coming in.
yeah,
I mean, that's strength and conditioning basics 101. That's healthcare basics 101.
right.
So yeah, interesting how we're marveling at that. But all right. Going on to the stats, they were 15th in yardage, just over 330 yards a game, 16th in scoring, 23 points per game, 17th in pass offense, just over 210 yards, 15th in rush, just under 120 yards a game. Defense, 12th in yardage, just over 310 yards allowed, 11th in points allowed, just over 21 points a game, 11th in pass defense, giving up just under 200 yards a game, and 18th in rush defense, giving up just over 115 a game. They were +1 in the turnover differential. That led to a 9-7-1 record. Going into this year, win total 9.5. I can't remember. Was it 9.5 last year? That would be
right.
such a shitty way to lose the
Yeah.
the win total there.
I think it was 9.5, and then they lost the last 4.
That's amazing. 9.5 over -130, under +110. Make the playoffs -150. Miss the playoffs +125. +225 to win the division. 9-1, so better odds, worse division odds, but better conference odds than the Lions, which is interesting. And better Super Bowl odds at 18-1. Pretty interesting. Where are you at? What bets do you have for the Green Bay Packers?
I am going to go ahead and take their under 9.5, partially due to the injury concerns that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Last year their offense was really humming when they ran through Tucker Kraft. Well, we don't expect him to be the same, probably at least the first half of the season.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to see Micah Parsons for the first third of the season, and we saw the cliff last year that they just leaped off once he went out.
Yep.
At the same time, we're basically running it back outside of a couple of defensive losses that I think are notable. I think that they are going to make a difference there. Just looking down through their schedule, I mean, their bye week's week 11, and then they have to go to the Rams and then to New Orleans coming off the bye. Like, those aren't going to be easy games. Obviously, you have the 6 division games, and let's go ahead and just split those for all intents and purposes. You finish the season at home against Houston with one of the best defenses in the league, and against Detroit, who, depending on which Detroit team we end up getting, might be a dogfight, or it might be, just trying to sneak into the playoffs with 9 wins. So I think this is a situation where early on you have a few tough games as a whole, but the back half of their schedule, I think, is really brutal outside of having Miami at home. So, give me the under 9.5 at +110 with Green Bay.
Yeah, man. I think I would probably say that's where I would end up. I ultimately winded up staying away from the win total. Again, this is this is probably the hardest team for me to get a read on.
Yeah.
I think they have a good defense. When Mike Parsons is out there, it can be really good. But again, the injury concerns. I don't trust the O-line. I ultimately don't trust the quarterback. I do like Tucker Kraft, Matt LaFleur. I kind of think they'll be around 8 to 10 wins. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit coin flippy for me to really have a play on, but sure. I think ultimately, I wouldn't play the juice, the -130 for the over. I think it is more likely they, finish 9, 8 wins, somewhere in there. I will play Christian Watson.
Okay.
Christian Watson, I'm going not as yards. I'm going strictly his receiving touchdowns. We're starting at over 5.5 receiving touchdowns, -138 over on FanDuel. He hit this number in just 10 games last year. So even with the injuries, he had 6 touchdowns last season. He had 7 in 14 games in his rookie year. And no more Romeo Doubs. Tucker Kraft is going to take some time to get going. No more Dontavian Wicks. I think he's going to truly be the wide receiver 1 for this offense. I think that he's got a lot of big play touchdown potential. Again, big boom bust guy. I think in best ball, he's a lot more likable than in managed leagues because I don't want to know when that injury is coming. But I do think over 5.5 receiving touchdowns as to start at minus 138, and then I'll take 10 plus receiving touchdowns. That's over at so the first one was at FanDuel. This one's over at DraftKings plus 550 for him to get to 10. There, I think it's a really good price. He needs 4 more touchdowns, and hopefully he plays all 17 games. And he's now going to be the guy in that wide receiver room, at least the way that I see it. So that's the only play I have for the Packers. What else do you got for him?
Yeah, I will actually be playing Christian Watson as well, but I will be on his receiving yards.
There you
because as a whole, I mean, we know his injury history. After he came back, after missing the first 5 or 6 weeks last year, he was healthy and he played pretty damn well.
Yeah.
I mean, as a whole, if we just look at his 4 years in the league, he hasn't played 17 games. I mean, 2 years ago he played 15 games, but I think they just paid the man a shit ton of money. If he's on the field, he's gonna hit these numbers along with probably some of those touchdowns that you just rattled off there. But yeah, I'm gonna take his over receiving yards at 774.5 at plus 105, and I'm even gonna throw a sprinkle on his 1,000 yards at plus 220. I think this is a guy with the highest ceiling by far on this Green Bay roster, and as long as he stays healthy, I think that he's going to be the wide receiver one, and I think he does eclipse that 1,000 yard mark. So yeah, give me Christian Watson over 774 at plus 105 and 1,000 at plus 220.
Yeah, I definitely do not hate that. I'm on the Christian Watson chain. Is that it for the Packers for you?
That's it.
Yep. All right, so these Green Bay Packers here, the Cheeseheads, Derek's going to be on there under 9.5 at a nice plus money price there, plus 110 over on DraftKings. We're both riding the Christian Watson hype train. We think it's been enough time that not everybody is on it, and there's actually some value there for him to be the guy in this Packers offense going into the season. The team with maybe 2 quarterbacks, maybe no quarterbacks. This is going to be an interesting one here. Well, they're at the right spot with the quarterback whisperer himself, with Mr. Kevin O'Connell.
Maybe.
We're talking about these Minnesota Vikings coming off a 9-8 season. I guess tied for 4th, technically 3rd in the division last year. Man, and when we get looking at this, very, very impressive record considering the quarterback play that they dealt with. It's going through these numbers, it was kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
All right, this is a team that is not bringing in a ton, but they're not losing a ton either. So let's go through their notable losses and additions. Ty Chandler is gone. C.J. Ham is gone. Jalen Naylor has been shipped off to be the wide receiver 1 potentially in Las Vegas. Center Rod Kelly is retiring. They traded Jonathan Grenard for some draft picks with Philly, who Grenard's been on the pup still with a pec injury. So Jonathan Allen is gone. Javon Hargrave is with the Packers. Fabian Monroe is gone, and Harrison Smith, who was tied for the interception leader, which was only 2. They didn't have a lot of interceptions last year, but he is a free agent or retiring. I don't know if he's officially retired yet, but he's not on the team this year. Additions, couple big ones. Kyler Murray, potentially your QB1. Juwan Jennings, a very, very solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Caleb Banks, the rookie first-round pick out of Florida, who is very, very high potential, I say, as a Florida Gators fan. He did have a pretty big injury last year to his foot, and that pretty much made him miss mostly all the season. But when he was healthy the year before, he is a difference maker if he can stay healthy. Jake Golday from Cal, tackling machine there at the University of Cal. James Pierre and Johnny Hecker. So really kind of 3 or 4 notable adds, a couple notable losses, not a ton of changes. What is your takeaways for this 2026 Minnesota Vikings roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of the additions outside of Kyler Murray, of course, but I think will be very interesting. I was hoping to find some numbers on Juwan Jennings, and I didn't see any, but I do think that he is a big play wide receiver that will be a red zone threat early and often in this Minnesota Vikings offense. You
Yeah.
mentioned it. Caleb Banks is one of those guys that has one of the highest ceilings coming into the league, but he's a big dude that has a foot injury, or he's coming off the foot injury. How what kind of shape will he be in coming into the season? How
Yep.
much play time will he actually get or be able to, provide? Yeah, I mean, as a whole, Grenard, he was a stud there in Minnesota. And Brian Flores, what a masterclass he
Yeah.
was able to give
Oh
last
yeah.
year. I mean, this Minnesota Vikings defense was, mostly nameless guys outside
Yep.
of Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, and they didn't necessarily do as much as what we expected them to.
Yeah. Really.
If Brian Flores can put on a show like he did last year and just heckle quarterbacks, this offense, if they get competent quarterback play, unlike they did last year, could be one of the better units in the league, in my opinion. I think as a whole, their skill position guys are really solid. It's just who's going to start, what Kyler are we going to get, or what JJ are we going to get situation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it's QB1. Is it K9 or 9? Kyler Murray or JJ McCarthy. I think it's going to be Kyler Murray. I think it should be Kyler Murray. We
Agreed.
both kind of, not super big fans of JJ McCarthy. I think he honestly needed another year in college. I think he
Yep.
should have stayed in. It's hard to argue with him. He got picked in the first round pretty high coming off the national championship. But for his development, I just don't think he was there. And then the injury and everything coming in. Brian Flores, though, yeah.
Benching, whatever we want to call it, sure.
Wow, I was talking about the injuries rookie year, but yes, that last year that was questionable injury. May have been for his own good, but you got really between Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, you have potentially two of the better football minds, offensive and defensive, respectively, minds in the game. We're gonna get to these stats, but it's incredible that they got to 9-8 last year with the type of quarterback play they were dealing with. Let's talk injuries here.
Sure.
Christian Darrisaw finally healthy. 2024 he had an ACL, MCL. He came back in 25, but he was on again, off again. He was just missing games. It wasn't right. Looks like he's finally healthy and good to go. He is one of the better left tackles in the game of football.
Absolute mauler.
He's a difference maker. Now next to Donovan Jackson, the big guy out of Ohio State there. Safety Josh Metellus had a labrum tear last year that shut him down for the season. He had surgery. He had the recovery. He's got 9 months, plenty of time for labrum there. He's back at training camp and should be good to go. So really, two guys really just kind of coming off old injuries with plenty of time. They're pretty damn healthy coming in.
Yep.
Going to the fantasy world, a couple guys here I'll rattle off and want to get your quick takes. Kyler Murray going off at quarterback 16 to 18, so you can almost get him for free there. Nice, late QB2 stash. Aaron Jones, RB 30, and Jordan Mason, RB 41 and 43. We'll start with Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Do you think he's worth a flyer there? You do not have to pay a lot to get him in fantasy.
I think he's worth a stash. I mean, obviously we have the upside of him being a mobile quarterback, but also, again, I think the guys that he's going to be throwing to, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better wide receiver 1, 2, 3 punch as well as Hawkinson. I think the upside is definitely there for Kyler, assuming that he can figure out OKC's offense.
Yeah. KOC.
KOC.
No, but yeah, I agree. I think Kyler Murray is super undervalued. I think
as long as he's not playing COD and it actually looks at his playbook.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got to have some type of redemption, man. Sam Darnold got fixed by KOC. Look where he's at now. I think Kyler Murray really needs to be introspective here and see, it didn't work out in Arizona. Got off to some hot starts, but it just kind of fizzled out. This is a chance to revive your career with arguably, I would say, the 3 best starting wide receivers you can get between Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Juwan Jennings. I don't think there's
a solid offensive line. I mean,
TJ Hawkinson might be cooked off the injuries. We'll see. I mean, he was a good prospect. The knee injury kind of really slowed him down coming in at 29, but he's still capable. Josh Oliver, but again, those wide receivers, Aaron Jones out of the backfield, Jordan Mason, I think it's a much better group than he was coming from last season. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones, RB30, Jordan Mason, RB41, 43. Where are you at between those two?
Between the two, I would probably rather have Mason at this point. I mean, they were basically splitting carries throughout the majority of the season last year. I mean, in the numbers, looking at the numbers, they basically show that the same output. So if I'm getting Jordan Mason a couple rounds later, I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll talk about Jordan Mason later, but I think he's going to be the RB1 on this team. I think Jones might get some third down work and out of the backfield because he is still a capable receiver. Right. But I think Mason is the younger and better runner at this point in their careers. So I'd love Mason at that price. I think he's super undervalued. All right, going on these stats. These stats are insane. Yeah. Okay, so 28th in yardage, just 275 yards per game on offense. Yikes. just over 20 points a game for 26th best in the league. 29th passing offense, only 166 yards with one of the best wide receiver tandems in the league. 23rd in rushing, just over 105 yards. Number 3 defense in yardage, just under 285 yards a game. Number 7 in points allowed, just under 20 points. Number 2 pass defense. You're giving up under 160 yards per game, which is incredible with not like two, quote unquote lockdown corners. 21st in rush defense, giving up just over 120 yards per game. Jonathan Allen, Hargrave didn't really do their jobs much last year. -9 turnover differential. This team
land on 9.
Yeah. This team won 9 games last season with quarterbacks who had a combined 18 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. I mean, that's incredible, in my opinion. 18 touchdowns, 21 interceptions, and you had a winning record. You had the run game wasn't like it was taken over, really. I don't, it really was truly a Brian Flores and Kevin O'Connell masterclass. That was good enough for 9-8 last year. Coming in this year, the win total is only at 8.5, -110 each way. They are +154 to make the playoffs. They are -186 to miss. They are +510 to win the NFC North, 24-1 to win the NFC, and 50-1 to win the Super Bowl. What do you got for the Minnesota Vikings this year?
Yeah, I mean, this is one team that, again, there are some major questions. But if things hit like they did a couple years ago when Sam Darnold took them to 15 wins, it could be a dangerous team. I do think that they're going to maybe not necessarily go to 15-2, but I think they will be an improved record compared to last year, which means I'm going to be on their over. So give me their over 8.5 wins at -110. I was kind of surprised to see their division price. I don't think that they're bottom feeders by any means.
Yeah.
Give me them to win the division at +510. I think that this division as a whole is very winnable at 10 wins. And if I'm going to take their over 8.5 at +510, give me them to win the division as well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This is the ceiling case for me in this division. Weirdly, this is the team I almost trust the most, even though we have the quarterback concerns. It's the only one that we don't know who's going to be starting quarterback for sure, but I oddly trust them the most because of Kevin O'Connell, because of the coaching with Brian Flores, and their injuries situation is much better than the other 3 teams in the division. I'm on the over 8.5 wins. I'm on the division +510. I love that price. I think that's crazy. I'm even going to be sprinkling to win the NFC at 24-1. Again, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jawan Jennings. That is a really, really good group. I think Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones are a good tandem. TJ Hawkinson, again, what you can get out of him. Their offensive line is very confident. And then you have a defense that is just going to create havoc. They, you see guys like Renard, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave being gone, and you're like, man, they must have lost a lot. Well, when we look at the production last year, that is not the case at all. Right. None of those guys were among the leaders in sacks, among the leaders in tackles. It was guys like Dallas Turner Andrew Van Ginkel, Eric Wilson, Jalen Redmond, shout out the UFL from where he came from.
Yep.
Like, those were all their 4 top leading sack guys, not Hargrave, not Allen, not Grenard. So a lot of people see those names leave and they're like, man, this is going to be a big downgrade. That's not the case at all. You still have Cashman and Wilson and Metellus, who are the top 3 tacklers. They return their top 4, leading tacklers, actually. I really think that if Kyler Murray can really just be better than the absolute dog shit at quarterback they had last year,
Yep.
I think there's a lot of potential for this team. So
Yep.
giving them on the over. I love the division at plus 510, and I will even sprinkle to win the NFC at 24-1. I just think the prices do not match at all. I'm kind of in on the Vikings. I did not think I would be here this season, but I look around the division. I have a ton of concerns on all 3 other teams. And I really think that they can have some good potential to shock the world here. So what else you got for the Vikings?
That's it for me. I think as a whole, I mean, it's kind of hard because, from a sacks perspective, you mentioned it. Grenard's gone.
Yep.
We can't – I didn't see a number for Van Ginkel out there. The skill guys, Justin Jefferson's numbers through the roof. And if I don't know who's the starting quarterback, I'm not taking him or Addison.
Yeah, that's
Didn't
fair.
find anything for Juwan Jennings. Like I said, I would really like to see a touchdown number for him because I think he is going to be a red zone threat.
Yeah.
But again, don't know exactly who's going to be the RB1 for Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones. I think they're both really good backs, but it's just a lot of uncertainty, but also confidence that whoever they throw out there is going to be able to get the job done kind of a situation.
Yeah. Juwan Jennings, store him away for first touchdown, anytime touchdowns when we get, especially early in the season.
Yeah.
When you have Addison and Jefferson and Hawkinson and, the back.
Jefferson and Addison, neither of them are big touchdown getters.
Right.
Anyways, and Hawkinson, you mentioned it earlier, did take a little bit of a step back last season after coming back from that ACL. So I think Juwan Jennings is a big body receiver that will be out there in the red zone.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I do have one player prop I'm going to get in with is Jordan Mason. I think that his number is really low, over 600.5 rush yards over on score bet, minus 115 there. The guy had 758 rushing yards on 159 carries last year. That was with splitting time. I do think it starts to become more of a 70%, 30% carries for Mason. I do think Jones is going to get some receiving work, so I think he'll still be a valuable asset to the team. But I'm also going to play him 1,000 yards at plus 450 there, and 10 plus touchdowns at plus 750 at bet 365 there for the ceiling case. He had 6 touchdowns again in limited carries last year, almost at 800 yards. I just think that he's going to have the potential to be the guy this year, and we're going to see the offensive line, especially with the healthy Darisaws, should be one of the better units in the league. So give me Jordan Mason there to kind of go off. All right, the Minnesota Vikings, shockingly, a team that we're not sure who's going to be the quarterback going in. One of the highest teams we're on in this division, in this conference. We are both on the over and the Minnesota Vikings to win the NFC North at plus 510. I'm going to take a stab at them to win the NFC at 24-1, and I'll also be on Jordan Mason over his rushing yards and his touchdown props going into this season. Now for the reigning NFC North Division champions, the Chicago Bears, one of the surprise teams of last season, except not to us because we gave them out to win their division there at plus 550 last season. But these Chicago Bears look a bit different going into this year. Let's talk about their losses and additions, starting with DJ Moore, who they traded to the Buffalo Bills, second leading receiver behind Colston Loveland. Wide receiver eliminate Zacchaeus, also gone. Center Drew Dahlman is retired. Linebacker Jermaine Edmonds, their leading tackler from last season, is now with my New York Football Giants. Cornerback Nashawn Wright is also gone. Safety Jaquan Brisker is with the Steelers. He was their third leading tackler. Safety Kevin Byard, who led the team in interceptions, he is now with the Patriots. Safety CJ Gardner-Johnson, one of the starters for them last year, now with the Buffalo Bills. As far as the guys they brought in, Khalif Raymond coming over from the Lions. Xavier Thomas is one of their higher draft picks from LSU. Tight end Sam Roush from Samford, who is a very good blocking tight end who may see the field. Center Logan Jones from Iowa. Center Garrett Bradbury, they brought over from New England, I believe. Neville Gallimore from defensive tackle there. Devin Bush. Kobe Bryant was the big offseason addition coming over from Seattle, but as we talked about a little bit, and we will talk about injury concerns there. And then first-round picks, rookie safety Dylan Thieneman coming over from Oregon. Where are you at with this roster for the 2026 season?
Yeah, I mean, they do have a decent list there, but for the most part, I'd see this as them kind of running it back. I think as a whole, DJ Moore wasn't necessarily used a ton, especially in the back half of the season, with the additions of Luther Burden and Odunze the year before. Colson Loveland came on super strong as well, but defensively, I still have some questions, especially if they're going to be able to replicate what they did last year.
Yeah.
At least from a turnover perspective, this is another kind of statistical anomaly where they have one of the worst defenses, but they force a shit ton of turnovers. Yeah, I think this is again a pretty solid roster. Year two under Ben Johnson. Let's see if they can take yet another step forward and become the really the kings of the North for the second year.
Yeah, man, this team is just screaming regression to me, especially on defense. But the amount of close games they won last year, I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more. But, man, I was high on this team last year, and it paid off. But we will see. They lost on defense their top 4 leading tacklers and their top 4 guys in interceptions that made up for 18 interceptions last season. Let's talk on the injury front as well, because they got some pretty significant injuries we need to speak on. Starting with safety Kobe Bryant, the Super Bowl champion coming over from Seattle, great player. He suffered a bone bruise and a small fracture in his knee. That was on the 3rd of August. He's been given an 8 to 10 week recovery timeline, meaning he's going to be back somewhere between week 3, 4, 5, 6. He's going to be out at least the first couple weeks of the season. And this safety group behind him is very thin. You have the rookie in Dylan Thieneman. Elijah Hicks is right now dealing with an injury. Then they brought in Xavier Woods from off the couch there. Like, this is a very thin unit. Also, nickelback Kyler Gordon had a calf injury in OTAs, was ready to come back, suffered a re-injury, still on the pup, still has not come back. How bad is that re-injury? No real timeline given. At this point, it's been a couple months. Like, week 1 is starting to become in doubt if he doesn't get back on the field soon. And then the one that just happened, Luther Burton, 2 days ago, he went down on a one-on-one route. He turned out he has a groin strain. They're saying he's going to miss about a month, which tells me, it's typically a grade 2 moderate strain. Got 5 weeks until the season. We need a little bit more. Like, we got to see a little bit more of what he can do, but they're already shutting him down for the preseason. Best case, this is a guy who for the second straight year is missing an offseason. And he's a second-year player. It took him a while to get going last year. Could it be the same? He's been kind of the fantasy football darling. People are super, super on his hype train. I think he's a good player, good talent coming out of Mizzou, but this injury does not help his case. And if he's supposed to be their wide receiver 1 as he's being drafted, that's a bit concerning. So where are we? Let's go to that fantasy talk, actually. Luther Burden, right now, I'm sure his ADP is dropping a bit, but wide receiver 18 to 21, whereas Rome Odunze is wide receiver 27 to 28. Who would you rather have and why?
Without the injury, I would rather have Rome Odunze, honestly. I mean, I think if you're getting Odunze a round or 2 later, Odunze is a stud when he's out there as well. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, he had injury stuff, and he only played 12 games with the foot thing too. I mean, so.
Right. I honestly, I'm not exactly sure where all of the hype is necessarily coming from with Luther Burden. I think it's one of those situations where could he pop? Yeah. I have to see it first, kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Odunze, I had him last year in fantasy until he went down with an injury. He was in the starting lineup basically every week. So, yeah, I would take Odunze anyways.
Yeah, I mean, Luther Burden is a guy who extremely talented coming out of Mizzou, but I don't get why Roma Odunze is getting slept on at all. In last year, looking at the stats, he played 12 games, 44 receptions, 661 yards, 6 touchdowns.
Yep.
Luther Burton played 15 games, 47 catches, only 652 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. So
basically the exact same guy plus 5 games or whatever it was.
And Roma Odunze was a first-round talent coming out of Washington. Let's not forget, he was the number 9 pick. So I know everyone's all hot and bothered over Luther Burton, but he was a second-round guy. He had trouble staying on the field in Mizzou. Now, if he's healthy, things could go well. But I think this is a little bit rich. I think they both can have good seasons. Yep. But give me Odunze 100%, especially at those ADPs. All right, let's go over the stats and betting space here. Offense, pretty damn good. Number 6 in yardage overall. Just under 370 yards per game. Just under 26 points per game. Good for 9th in the league. Number 10, pass offense. 225 yards per game. Number 3, rush offense. Just under 145 yards per game. Kind of a nice two-headed monster there with Manungai and Swift. And a really good offensive line. 29th in yardage on defense, giving up 360 yards per game, 23rd in points allowed, giving up over 24 points a game, 22nd in pass defense, giving up over 225 yards a game, and 27th in rush defense, giving up just under 135 yards per game.
Yeah.
But they had 22. They were plus 22 in the turnover differential.
Insane.
This was the best in the league by 5. Plus
forced the most turnovers and had the least amount of turnovers.
That incredible because again, that defense on paper statistically was bad. Not
Very
even
bad.
Middle of the road, like bad. The fact that they just were very, very reliant on the turnover, that is interesting. 11-6 last year, NFC North champions, coming in with a win total of 9.5, so a little bit of tempered expectations.
Yep.
Over plus 100, under minus 120, minus 108 to make the playoffs, minus 110 to miss, plus 305 to win the division, plus 1250 to win the NFC, and 24-1 to win the Super Bowl. What do you got for these 2026 Chicago Bears?
Yeah, the Bears are tricky because I was coming into this, I thought this is a team that's going to regress. I'm probably going to have them at 8-9 wins at least. Turnovers, we usually look at that to regress. I just, looking at their schedule, man, I don't know if there's 7 or 8 losses there. I could see a pathway where they do regress. And based on the numbers last year, I think would expect them to regress, but again, I just can't find 7 or 8 wins on their schedule. So I ended up staying away from wins, playoffs, all of their numbers basically. Like I said, I do think that Minnesota, just numbers wise, I'm gonna go ahead and bet that division. But Chicago, I'm staying away from everything. I mean, looking at their schedule, they have to go to Philly in week 3. I mean, scratch that. They have to go to Carolina in week 1. They bring Philly up to Chicago in week 3. I think that's a tough matchup for them.
Yeah.
They have to go to New England. We'll see where that is. Or they have New England at home. See where that is. Then they have to go to Seattle.
Yeah.
And as a whole, they just are playing a
first place
schedule, and I can see them being middling, but I can also see them taking another step forward in the second year of Ben Johnson and winning 10-11 games. So I'm staying away from all of it.
I'm gonna go. I will take a stab. I'm gonna go Bears to miss the playoffs, minus 110 over on DraftKings. A lot of what you're saying, I think regression's coming, especially on defense. First place schedule. Last season, they had 11 wins. 7 of those wins were by 1 score. 2 of them were by 1 point.
Yep.
I think they not only got lucky in the turnovers, I think they pulled a lot out of their ass. I think, that was kind of they were the cardiac Bears last year. I don't think that's a sustainable formula.
Yeah, I think just to that point, turnover-wise, they started to actually see a little bit of a regression over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I think their last 3 weeks, I think that they had a turnover in each of those games, which is absolutely insane. That they still had the least amount of turnovers.
Yeah.
But even then, I do think that this offense improves. And defensively, that is the biggest question. How far are they going to slip? Because I think the way that they play, I do think that they kind of just sit back in zone and will get a fair amount of turnovers once again.
I just think they take a step back. You got the concerns with, Luther Burton. Your safety group is incredibly thin. I mean, their cornerbacks are okay,
Yeah.
but I have concerns with the secondary now. They were a bad defense last year. I mean, they were not a good defense. They were opportunistic, sure,
Yes.
but I just don't think they're going to get that many turnovers. So I'm going to miss playoffs. I don't think they're going to be a bottom league of the league. I think they go 8-9 wins. I think they just miss out on the playoffs. I think the -110, I like that more than their under 9.5 wins, because I think if they get 9 wins, that's not good enough for the playoffs.
Yeah.
In the NFC. What do you got for any bets for the Bears?
Yes, I do. I have a couple. Give me Colston Loveland over 5.5 receiving touchdowns at
Love it.
-105.
Okay. Yep.
I'm also going to play his 8 touchdowns at 3-1. Because I think, especially if Burden does end up missing some time or just doesn't work out, it's Rome Odunze and Colston Loveland. And Loveland came on really, really strong in the second half of the season. One guy up front that I do like is Montez Sweat. Give me his over 8.25 sacks. I
Okay.
must not have written that number down, but yeah, he went over this number last year. He didn't play the whole season the year before, but then he hit this 3 years ago as well. So I do think that Montez Sweat is the guy that gets the most pressure on that Bears front, and we'll go over that 8.25 sacks again.
Yeah. I don't mind that at all. I think Colston Loveland is a really, really solid player. I think they got a couple tight ends in Komet and the rookie there, Roush.
Yeah.
They could run some pretty interesting packages with Ben Johnson. So
And will,
yeah,
probably.
yeah. I mean, the Ben Johnson and the offense and the players that they have, it's hard to. They're not going to be a bad offense by any means. It's the defense where I have concerns. I'm going to go Roman Dunze. I've been talking about him over 5.5 receiving touchdowns, -114. He had 6 last season in just 12 games. I think he clears that again. And then over 775 receiving yards. He had 734 his rookie year, 661 in the 12 games last year. I think he's now healthy coming off that foot injury, and he is going to be the one that really benefits a lot from this offense. No DJ Moore. I think him and Luther Burton again, because both have good years. But it's actually Rome Odunze who I'm going to take to be the ceiling case here. I've kind of laddered up his receiving touchdowns, receiving yards. But I also am going to give it out. I mean, it's another dart throw, but most receiving touchdowns in the NFL, 60-1 over on DraftKings. Okay. Talk about an offense that could potentially putting up a lot of points if he is the wide receiver one of that offense. I think a 60-1 for a top 5 offense, wide receiver one. I think that price is a little crazy. And then receiving yards, most receiving yards, 110-1. Caleb Williams, obviously uber talented. You got a defense that I think is going to be giving up a lot of points. You're going to have to be throwing the ball there. He almost had 4,000 yards last year in passing. I think that he can sustain 1, if not 2, pretty damn good wide receivers. So I'm going to be riding the Rome Odunze train, in fantasy, in the player props world. Don't hate Luther Burton, and I'm not completely out on him. But I think the hype has just gotten kind of ridiculous is where I would go there. So I'm on the Rome train. All right. I am going to be, unfortunately, after they made me so much money last year winning the division, I'm going to be fading the Bears a little bit this year. I think regression is coming, and that defense is going to be exposed a bit this season, giving them a miss the playoffs -110. Derek is going to be on the Colston Loveland train, taking his over receiving touchdowns, and Montez Sweat to get over 8.25 sacks. I'm going to be on the Rome Odunze train. Give me him over receiving touchdowns, over receiving yards. If you want to get frisky, you can get him to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns at 60-1 and lead the NFL in receiving yards at 110-1. I'm a Rome believer, man. I don't know. I don't think Burden is... I'm not saying that he's nothing, but I don't know where we just skipped over Rome Odunze. I feel like it's when we skip over skip over Thanksgiving and go right to Christmas. You gotta pay your respects. All right. So that is what we have for your 2026 Chicago Bears. All right, folks, you've made it through another episode of Division Previews. It is Division Preview season. We have done the entire AFC. We started with the South, then we went to the West, then we went East, and then we went North. And we're staying in the North, but going over to the NFC. Obviously, we just wrapped this up. Pretty soon this week, you'll also be getting the NFC South. Two kind of, in a weird way, similar divisions where it's up for grabs who's going to win. There's no clear real favorites. I think you can make an argument and a case against for each team. What do you have for the people before we get out of here?
Yeah, man. I mean, if we're going to keep rolling these division previews out. Once we get those out, team previews will be coming out individually. But then we have all kinds of stuff coming out before the season starts. We're in discussions on which shows we actually want to grace the fine guests of the program with, and then we'll be on weekly college football, NFL football, all season long, all the way through the football, or all the way through the football, all the way through the Super Bowl.
Run through the line, baby.
But hey, high school football is right around the corner. College football is right around the corner, and of course, the NFL is never far away from our hearts. So if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Make sure you tell a coworker, a friend, at one of those high school football games, tell the whole sideline, whole section you're sitting in, hey, the Degen Docs over at DFSG Plus are pretty cool. So yeah, that's it.
Just to be clear, we will not be gambling on high school football. I didn't know if you were going like a UFL reference there, but
no.
I get what you're saying. Get excited.
But we have football fans at high school football games.
Right. Okay, I get it. I see where we're
Expanding the market.
Yeah, you're opening horizons. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. We just recently crossed that 1,000 subscribers mark, but that's just the beginning. We're ready for this thing to take off. We are going to do our best to make sure that we're always going to give you our picks for free, and the only thing we ask for is a simple like, subscribe, and turn those notifications on. You never know when we're going to give out a bet that wins you a lot of money, like last season when we gave out a $10 to win over $5,200. That is a 524-1 bet there on the division winners. So definitely going to want to stay tuned there. Hey, folks, you know what they say. A lock a day keeps the bookie away. And here on the Degen Docs, we've got your prescription from Doc and Locks here on DFSG Plus. We are out of here.